Everybody's got a price, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we are back for another episode of Everybody's Got a Pod. And of course, I couldn't do it without my buddy there, the $1 million man. Look at that. That's a Dallas Cowboys thing he's got there, isn't it?
That's exactly right. So I want all my fans out there. I know you're all over the place, and I know you got your team. I'm just letting you know that my team's the Dallas Cowboys, and has been since I was a little boy, way back. I mean, I must have been 12 years old. And I was in Wilcox, Arizona, this little town where my grandparents lived. Living with them at the time, and they had the Ford dealership. They called it the punt, pass, and kick contest. So you would punt the ball, pass the ball, and kick the ball, and they would tally it all up, and whoever won first place got the first place, second place. I mean, there were three places. For three places, they had something. But the first place winner, which that year was me, right. I got like a Letterman's jacket. And don't you know, it was the color of the Cowboys. And right there, they had a cowboy emblem. And so ever since then, buddy, I've been a Dallas Cowboy fan. I live in Mississippi. I'm only 180 miles from the New Orleans Saints. And of course, you know, I've got family members here who've lived here a long time, and the Saints are their team. And I said, well, yeah, okay, that's okay. But and if you go 400 miles the other way is the Atlanta Falcons. Nah, I don't care about them.
Hard to care about them.
I am a Cowboy all the way.
Man, and you got to see, by the way, for our listeners who are not into football talk or Dallas Cowboys talk, I'm sure we've got some Eagles fans listening right now. Go ahead and skip ahead with whatever 5 minutes. We'll get to the meat of the show. But right now we're talking Cowboys because it's playoff time and we're pumped up. Ted, you got to see the greatest eras of the Cowboys as well. So you got to, I imagine, watch the Roger Staubach era. Into the Troy Aikman era. So, like, man, you've got to see the success. Yep. I've seen mostly failure since I became a Cowboys fan.
I saw Staubach, you know, and I saw Jimmy Johnson's run as a coach there. I've seen just about all of it, and I guess my other very good friend who's like myself, a very devoted Christian. His name is George South. George has a wrestling school, and he lives in the Charlotte area, and Charlotte, North Carolina. And I don't know, I may have told this story. If I had, well, everybody's going to hear it again. He loves the Cowboys, and he would pull his ring. I was doing. Back when there were still guys that wrestled with me that were still wrestling a little bit, I would call on some of those guys, and I would get like the Road Warriors to come and do one show. But George would pull his ring to wherever I was, and we used the wrestling show as bait to draw people in to a church. And then after the show was over, I mean, the show would end by me coming out and interrupted a match and doing this gig, and finally it's kind of like I'm the $1 million man, and I keep offering this guy, he just wins, and I said, you know what, I'll tell you what, I'll give you this much money, and finally he says I can't be bought. I said, kid, everybody's got a price. And I said, what's yours? He says, I can't be bought. I said, well, what makes you different than everybody else? He says, I've been bought by the blood of Jesus Christ. And that's when I come out of character, and I just become Ted, and I start sharing my testimony right there from the ring. Did it all over the place. Anyway, back to George South. We were someplace in Texas. I'm trying to remember where it was. But on the way back, he said, I have got to stop at Cowboy Stadium. And so, I mean, it's not a game or anything. It's just a stadium. He says, and so I said, okay, George. And so we pull up to Cowboy Stadium and everything, and this, the gates and everything and all that stuff. And he's just kind of looking around. And then one of the groundskeepers comes, and George will say, hey, sir, don't be worried. He said, we're not vandals or anything. He says, I'm just a big Cowboy fan. And I said, sir, he's about probably the biggest Cowboy fan I've ever known in my life. And so he says, really? And said, yeah. He says, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. And he unlocks the gate and brings us in and takes us on a tour of Cowboy Stadium.
Incredible.
Down where the locker rooms are and all that stuff. And so, I mean, George was just, he was beside himself. And so as we're getting ready to leave, he says, boy, I wish there was something I could have. And I don't know how the guy did this, but he gave him a seat, one of the seats from the stadium.
Wow.
But I guess they could replace, but he gave him a seat. So George just got, man, he's got, not only is a big Cowboy fan, when he's at home and they're playing, he says he can sit in one of the seats from Cowboy Stadium.
That is
Anyway.
absolutely incredible. And look, it's you and I have talked about it off air. I think next year you and I are going to have to go to a Cowboys game there in Arlington. We'll tailgate. We'll do the whole thing. Maybe I can convince Jake the Snake to come along for the tailgate and have some fun and take in our Cowboys, because all three of us are huge fans.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to do that.
This week on Everybody's Got a Pod, we're doing something pretty fun as we take a look back 35 years to the WWF at the start of 1989, which of course means the Royal Rumble. As many of you know, I also host podcasts with Jake Roberts and Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and it occurred to me that I had the opportunity to do something really fun. So Ted, yourself, Jake, and Jim were all at this event and all played key roles. So I had decided I would talk to all three of you about this pay-per-view and get three unique Hall of Fame perspectives. So if you folks enjoy what we do here, please go check out the Snake Pit with Jake Roberts and the Hacksaw Hour with Hacksaw Jim Duggan and get the full story behind Royal Rumble 1989. It's interesting getting to talk to you, Jim, and Jake every week, because you guys all had these careers that were on very similar paths. You guys were all in Mid-South at the same time and WWF. It's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, and again, Jake, by this time was a babyface, and I think he wasn't he?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, by the time he was a babyface, and I mean, I loved to wrestle with Jake. It was so easy because Jake and I came from the same school, if you will, the same the same ideology. This is wrestling. This is how you should do it. And so it was easy to work with him. And I mean, it was kind of like, and we got to know each other well enough while we wrestled that we could just position ourselves in a it's kind of like if, for example, if he were to, duck a clothesline and he comes off and hits me and I go down and I stagger up to my feet and I start staggering toward a corner with my back to him. Well, then he would just come behind me, grab me by the hair and run my head into that turnbuckle. But he knew because I was already walking to the corner what I wanted. So things like that. And it was just, he was easy. Yeah, working with Jake was like a night off. It was really was.
It's really fun getting to talk to you guys because your personalities are pretty different in a lot of ways. But like when it comes to wrestling, you guys could not be more aligned in everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fascinating getting to talk to you, him, and Jim. And speaking of Jim and the Hacksaw Hour, I've got a really big announcement to make here on the show. Every week, we encourage all of you to go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And now you've got a really, really big reason to go and do it. Jim and I have been doing our podcast exclusively on ad-free shows, but we wanted to grow our audience. So we are now moving this bi-monthly show exclusively to the Everybody's Got a Pod YouTube page. So that's right. You've got all things Ted DiBiase and Jim Duggan in one place, and it's our YouTube page. You can get the first 8 episodes of the Hacksaw Hour right now on adfreeshows.com, but every episode moving forward is going to be only on YouTube. We're not going to have an audio version. You can only watch it. A lot of people actually prefer to listen to their podcasts that way, so it's going to be a lot of fun. It's on the YouTube page for Everybody's Got a Pod, youtube.com/@everybody's-got-a-pod. Get over there and get subscribed today. Man, Hacksaw is such a fun storyteller. He's got so much personality. Going to be a lot of fun having him help us grow our page, huh, Ted?
That will be awesome. Yeah, you got to get us all together on one of these. And have a round table if that's possible.
That is a hell of an idea. Yes, we will definitely do that this year.
Be like a special event, you know.
Yes. You know what? It's occurring to me that not only were you guys all, of course, here at the Royal Rumble, but you guys are all going to be working at WrestleMania 5. Which is going to be 35 years ago this year. So maybe that's going to be the opportunity to get all 3 of you guys on one show.
Wow.
I think we might have to pull the trigger on that. So yeah, but without further ado, you ready to get into these notes about Rumble?
Let's go with it.
All right, let's get it. So the former sheep herders are coming into the WWF in late 1988, but they've been rebranded as the Bushwhackers. And to say that their characters have changed would be a big understatement as they're coming in the door here. Ted, what do you recall about your earliest experiences around Luke and Butch as the sheep herders?
You know what? Those guys were great. And I loved them. I mean, it was kind of like the, their gimmick, they do the deal and they would, get everybody to follow them. But, aside from the gimmick, and all the faces they could make and all that stuff, they were really great workers. I mean, it was like a night off because they were so easy to work with. You didn't have to do much coaxing or leading. It was just a natural. And so, to have a tag match with those guys, I would always look forward to it. Vince brings them in and they make this change. And again, it's kind of like me. They're going to be good guys, but the kids are going to like them because of all that crazy stuff they do. For me, the first time I went to the WWF, I was a babyface. So when Vince brought me back in, he brought me back in. The whole thing. We told the story about here's the one thing everybody hates is someone who, by virtue of their wealth, bullies people. The character of the $1 Million Man. And I was healed, but it was always easy to work with these guys because the kids loved them. And of course, it was especially, I had a lot of fun because, being one of the most hated heels, and wrestling with the Bushwhackers was, and they would do, they would do things to where, it's like I'd be backing up like this and he comes in the ring, he just taps me on the shoulder and I turn around and he just pokes me in the eyes. And I just go down and sell the heck out of it. Just, some of it was silly stuff, but you mixed it with a serious match. It's hard to explain, but they were great at it.
They were, and I think that a lot of the old school diehard wrestling fans are like, Vince ruined them. They were the sheep herders, and they were, this really nasty couple tag team wrestlers, the original hardcore type style. And it's like, hey, look, that might not fit your preference. However, I would be willing to bet that they would tell you they made the best money while they were with the WWF, and their legacy is what they did in the WWF, much like yours is.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Couple guys that got the Hall of Fame nod in 2015, very well deserved.
Absolutely.
Well, somebody who's getting ready to head out the door at this time is your old friend Harley Race. He's coming off surgery and he'll make a brief return in 1988 before leaving the company following the Rumble. Apparently, Harley is citing road fatigue as one of the reasons he was leaving, which really kind of stuck out to me as I was reading about it, because we're talking about a guy who's the traveling NWA world champion. And now here he is in the WWF and he's like, hey, this travel's too much. It's man, that really speaks volumes. What can you tell us about how brutal the travel was here in the late 80s in the
Oh
WWF?
gosh. I mean, when I started, some of the guys told me, they said, Ted, they said the first couple of years when he was just trying to, he said it was even worse. And I said, worse? Yeah, it was worse. I mean, they would be on the road sometimes for, like weeks on end, could you imagine going on the road and not getting home for 2 months?
Oh my gosh.
But by the time I got there, they had started to whittle it down, and back then when I first started, it was 3 weeks on the road and a week off. So it was 21 days, 21 cities.
Oh,
that's brutal.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, I would wake up at hotels sometimes and lay there a minute and go, okay, where the hell am I? And I would actually roll over on the, in the hotel rooms, there's a nameplate on the phone, and it's got the name of the hotel and the phone number. And I would have to, sometimes I'd roll over and go, oh, okay, I'm in Chicago.
Man, it's just absolute insanity what you guys were doing out there on the road. And it's like, you're living that rock star lifestyle. Of course, you're going to do rock star things, like maybe take an upper to be able to make the next town, or, okay, I need to blow off some steam after the show. You go and get drunk with your friends. So it's like, it's no wonder that there were so many issues going on in these days.
Yeah.
And, talking to Jake about this whole thing, he had said, I'd mentioned this about Harley, and he was like, well, here's the difference. He's like, Harley was the traveling NWA champion, but he might work, 3 days if during that travel week. He's like, we were working every single day. He's like, so, yep, he's traveling about as much as before, but now he's got to work every day as opposed to maybe 3 or 4 days a week.
Well, and now I don't know, again, I know that when the NWA champion would come to the Amarillo territory, and that's where I was during the time that Harley was champion, he wrestled every night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was like he came in and he would wrestle whoever the top baby face at the time was, and then every night they'd go an hour. Now, I don't know, he may have had to have a couple of travel days or whatever, but the life of the world champion. Now, it's like the WWF world champion was only the world champion in the WWF.
Mm-hmm.
The AWA world champion was only the world champion in the AWA territory. The NWA world champion was the world champion in territories all over the country. That's the difference.
A lot of pressure, a lot of expectation. Yeah. So, man, it's incredible that guys like him and Terry Funk and all the others, Ric Flair, were able to do it at the level that they did for as long as they did.
Yeah.
Well, so I do have to ask you before we move off the topic of Harley, the character that he was portraying here in the WWF is a huge, huge departure from what we saw him as previously in his career. In years prior, he was this no-nonsense wrestler's wrestler type guy. But during his WWF run, he's working as King Harley Race, and everything is very gimmicky and cartoonish. We know that Vince was trying to go more mainstream, of course, as you and I have discussed here before. But I'm wondering, like, your personal opinion. You come into the WWF, Harley Race is King Harley Race while he's here. What did you think? Would they have been better served letting him just be Harley Race of old?
Well, my opinion is yes. For me, it was kind of like, the people have seen this guy as, just Harley Race. This, in the make-believe world of professional wrestling, he's a tough guy. in the real life, he's a tough guy.
Right.
He's a guy you do not, if you, I would say it this way. If you had to walk down a dark alley at night and you knew there were a bunch of thugs in the alley, if you only had your choice of having one person to go with you, it would be Harley Race. But sometimes I wonder if that was like Vince, like a rib, like, okay, this big tough Harley Race, and I'm going to make him king. Again, what I have to, and here's the thing that's hard for me too. It's like, and I think Jake would probably agree with me in this, because we grew up in the old school way. Our fathers were old school wrestlers. And so this new thing with the WWF and, trying to market towards children and, toys and, stuff like that, you're bigger than life, hero, Hulk Hogan, and I'm like Snadley Whiplash, everybody's got a price for me. Kind of cartoonish. And so, I have to keep that in mind in terms of what Vince would find for Harley. So,
Yep.
I don't know. It swings both ways, I think.
He was selling to a different audience than you guys had been in the territories. In the territories, you're selling to adult men, and in the WWF, you're selling your product to children. And so, with that being the case, kids like cartoons, which means you've got to be a cartoon character.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you had mentioned that possibly a rib on Harley, and Harley used to be a promoter, of course, much like Vince. So maybe, where there's smoke, there's fire sometimes. And I do have to ask you, I asked Jake this question and he didn't know anything about it. So I'll ask you, did you ever hear the story of Harley threatening to kill Hulk Hogan before Race joined the WWF?
Nope.
You didn't?
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you the Reader's Digest version because I don't know all of it, but in a nutshell, I guess he was pissed off that the WWF was stealing business from his territory, and so I think he actually pulled a gun on Hulk Hogan at one point and threatened him. I'm gonna look the story up and come back more prepared the next time. I know I've heard it. I just don't remember all the details.
I might, when we get through the podcast, I might pick up my phone and call Hulk and go, did he really do that?
As a matter of fact, and you know what, I'm just going to Google it real quick so we can actually talk about it, because I think that Hulk is the one who revealed the story. So here we go. Here's the article. Getting through the bullshit part of it. We pumped the signal. This is Hogan. We pumped the signal into Kansas City for 8 weeks. Harley Race had been there for like 18 years. He was the NWA champion. I'm the champion of the world, and he's a very proud and mean son of a bitch. And all of a sudden, here comes this blonde-haired idiot from New York and went, I'm the WWF champion, the WWE champion. I'm coming to Kemper Arena. We pumped the segment. So I fly into town. I show up about 2 in the afternoon. My guys call me and said, Harley Race came down here with a gun. He tried to light the ring on fire. They told me, Harley said, when I show up, he's going to kill you. I had to go to the bathroom and my stomach was killing me. So I'm sitting on the toilet going to the bathroom. Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, said, oh my God, the fucking guy is here. He's going to kill you, Hogan. I pull my wrestling yellow tights up. I don't even wipe my ass as fast as I could because I don't want to get caught with my pants down and I don't have a fighting chance. I blow out of the bathroom. I turn around the corner and he puts that gun right in my face. He said, I should kill you for coming in and doing this. And this is Harley Race talking to me. And he puts the gun down and he goes, I really need a job. I went, holy shit. I shook his hand, brother. I was a huge fan. Love the guy to death. Wow. All right. So there you go.
So he said, Harley said, I really need a job.
Yeah, I guess at first Harley threatened him, and then he was like, by the way, could I get a job?
Yeah. Well, and again, you have to understand that Harley was one of the owners of the Kansas City territory. He and Bob Geigel and I think it was Pat O'Connor. Those 3 guys were partners, and that, the Kansas City territory was like, it wasn't a huge territory, but I mean, it was theirs. They were the owners, they were the promoters of that territory. as a team. You know, O'Connor, Harley, and Bob Geigel. And Bob Geigel and O'Connor are both, I think, older than Harley.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so anyway.
As hearing that story, would you say that like you knew Harley Race about as well as anybody? Does that sound like the Harley Race you knew?
Yeah, I could see him doing it. It's like, yeah, like you talk about a rib.
Yeah. Oh man, awesome. I'm glad we read that. Another guy who's going to retire briefly in 1988 before making his return at the end of the year is Big John Studd. He'll be coming back into the company as a babyface, and he's going to get a nice push right out of the gate. And talking with Jake and Hacksaw about John, I heard varying accounts on how they viewed him as a performer and as a guy. What were your experiences like with John?
You know, I didn't have too many, but you know, I wasn't that impressed. Okay.
So, you know, we're talking about a dude who's whatever, 6'10", 7 foot tall, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, he's impressive to look at, but
right.
You know, his work didn't impress me that much.
No, it's, you know, you've got Andre, and then you've got pretty much every other 7 foot giant out there. Like Andre's in a league of his own, so like comparing the two is, yeah, it's not easy.
Just curious, you know, what did Jake say?
So Jake was like, he seemed like a nice enough guy and everything, but he was like, essentially, he was like, the guy was dim-witted. It was pretty much how he put it. He was like, I think Jake actually said he was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. He was a little bit closer to being like a butter knife.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well said. I mean, you know, that's basically, like I said, you know, big guy, very impressive to look at, but his work, no, he
left a little bit lacking. Apparently, it was so Bruce Pritchard tells the story that Big John came in and said like, "Hey Bruce, you know, I'm ready to come back to work, and you know, I can deadlift whatever." It was some crazy amount, like 1,200 pounds or something. He's like, "I can deadlift all this weight." He's like, "I'm in the best shape of my life." So Bruce gets him to the gym. And he's like, "All right, we're gonna film a vignette of you deadlifting," and here he couldn't do it. And so Bruce had to put some gimmicked plates on the thing to get the vignette.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, apparently he told a big whopping lie to come back into the territory here. But still, he's coming in and he's getting a big push, and he's about to win this Royal Rumble, which is, you know, back then it wasn't quite what it is now, where you get the title shot and it's this huge thing. But it is still like they're really highlighting this guy coming back in the door.
Yeah.
So both Jake and Jim pointed out about John that Andre did not like him at all. And after the Rumble, the two of them are going to be working together. What do you remember about Andre disliking Big John Studd?
Yep. Yeah. No, he didn't like him at all. And you know, and again, obviously, here's a guy who is not that good, and is big. And when you're Andre the Giant, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it's Andre's like, you know, there's only one giant, and it ain't you. It ain't you, John Studd. So you know, and again, okay, not too many people, you know. A lot of people had the same, you know, thought about John Studd as Jake, me, probably. I don't know if you asked Hacksaw, but you know, it's just, you know, it's wasn't a bad guy, you know, big strong guy, but you know, he wasn't this, you know, and again, obviously willing to lie to get back in, get back. Oh, all of a sudden you can't. What happened? Did you not eat your Wheaties this morning? You know, you didn't eat your spinach, so you could pull a, you know, Popeye routine and lift all that weight.
Yeah, got to be a little bit embarrassing to have like a vignette centered around it. And
oh yeah,
what you said,
and then you can't do it. Yeah,
oh, well, that would be terrible.
You know, but you know, to me, there were a lot of big guys, and there were a lot of big guys that, you know, there were some that were, you know, decent workers. to me, nobody topped Andre. Andre, Andre mastered the skill of being able to get in the ring with somebody that's half his size and find a way to make the people believe that he just might lose. That's hard to do. So, but Andre could do it. I mean, how many people that got in the ring with Andre were as big as Andre? Nobody.
Yeah, probably nobody ever.
Yeah. So,
man, it's and by the way, like Jim did have nice things to say about Big John Studd, in that he was a nice guy. He was really soft spoken. He was a gentleman. He was like, so I had no issues with John. But that being said, objectively, a guy like you or Jake, who's like second generation wrestler, you view wrestling very differently from anybody else. Where, yep, it's sports entertainment, but also it's like it's a trade, right? It's a trade that's been passed down to you from your fathers and something that you learned and put your heart and soul into. And you see a guy like this come in and you're like, this guy's getting a big push because what? Because he's huge. Like, he can't work like I can, so it's got to be a weird, warring perspective.
Well, and again, I didn't, it's like, I didn't have anything against him. Wasn't that, but it's just, he was very big and impressive, but that's about where it ended.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to your point, it couldn't work.
Right.
He had, whoever's in the ring with it has to lead him. Andre could get in the match and tell whoever he's working with what to do and how to do it. Here's what we're gonna do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Andre had that ability. John Studd did not. So
that raises an interesting point. It's something I never talked to you about before, Ted. When you would get into the ring with Andre, I know that usually he was your tag team partner. Did you ever face him though?
You know what? I never did.
Never.
I never had a match against him.
Okay.
I was always his tag team partner, and that's smart. That's you don't want to get on the big man's bad side, and I think I don't think he didn't like Jake for some reason.
So Andre had an issue with Jake apparently right out of the gate. So from the way that Jake tells it, they climbed into the ring the first time as they were starting their program actually during this period, late 88 into 89. And Jake said, I got into the ring with him the first time and he just ate me up. He didn't give me anything. You're out in the ring, you can't exactly take anything from him either. So like he just wouldn't give me anything, just ate me alive out there. So apparently Jake stormed into his locker room afterwards and confronted him and said, hey, look, we can have shitty matches all through this program, or you and I can work together and make this something good. And I guess Andre respected it. And after that, he and Jake had no issues, but he did like to rib Jake in the ring, and he would he'd get him pinned down and fart on him or step on his hair and then pull his arm.
I was I was Andre's partner. Yeah, when he was doing that, Jake had that long hair, and he'd stand on his hair and he'd say, "Get up, get up." Jake's going, ah.
Such a mean rip. Like, what can you do about it?
Nothing.
You're like a plaything in this guy's hand. I am curious though. What I was driving toward before was when you're in the ring with Andre, whether a tag team partner or whatever, who calls the match? Does Andre call it, or does like a more technical guy like Jake?
Well, it's like, again, and I understood that. I mean, like when I'm Andre's partner, Andre is limited as to what he can do. So I'm the guy that's got to be in the match and capable of taking the bumps and bouncing around the ring, especially if you're the heels, and of course I was always a heel, and so was he. I mean, with in the WWE when he turned heel, and he and I are partners. And but somebody's got to get beat up. And of course that was me. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, you were the bump taker.
When it came time, for for the baby face to make the hot tag, and come in and clean house, I had to be the guy to take the bumps because Andre couldn't take that many bumps. So, you know, and that was understood. I mean, that's just logical.
Right. Right. He's
So,
not going to be out there bouncing around the ring.
no, no. But no, I had no problem with Andre ever.
But it sounds like he respected you, and yeah, grew to respect Jake.
Yeah.
On the way to the Rumble, you're making the loop with Hercules and beating him every night with a little help from Virgil. But on December 26th in Toronto, Hercules is going to have some travel issues, and instead, you're going to face Sam Houston. And Sam is, of course, the brother of Jake Roberts and a second generation wrestler like yourself. Ted, what can you tell us about your impressions of Sam Houston and his ring work?
When I first, you know, again, I've known him since before he, you know, got in the ring. You know, like when I was working for Bill Watts and Grizzly Smith, who's his father, was the agent, so to speak. You know, Sam was around then, you know, but he was okay. I mean, you know, again, he was very young, you know, when I was around him, and you know, like, and he's just starting out in the business, but I thought he was okay. He was decent. You know, he wasn't, you know, he wasn't bad. It was like, I wouldn't thumb my nose at him. That's for sure.
Compared to Jake, though, not exactly the same kind of second generation chemistry that you had with Jake.
No, I don't think so.
About a week after you defeat Sam Houston, you'll step into the ring with one half of the Young Stallions, Paul Roma, for a TV match. Paul is one of those names that we will likely never bring up on this show again. So let's take full advantage right now. Paul had a great look, fantastic build, seemed to be pretty good in the ring. What did you think of him?
Yeah, I mean, he was, you know, I didn't, I mean, you know, obviously I didn't think he was like the greatest of all time, but I mean, he was a good worker. He was a good, solid worker. But I don't know that if I, you know, I just don't know that I would ever have, you know, it's one of those guys who I didn't think I respected his work, but he was never going to be a superstar.
He's one of those guys that, you know, like a lot of times we like hear some of these gimmicks and we're just like, you know, like Harley Race is a great example. We just talked about him where it's like, you know, it would have been great to have seen territory Harley Race here in the WWF. Paul Roma, on the other hand, like he's just a dude. He's just Paul Roma. And I feel like a guy like that with his build and his look, like he would really benefit from having kind of more of an over the top character that people could really sink their teeth into, you know? Yeah. So probably a missed opportunity with him because, like I said, the guy looks like $1 million. I mean, an 8x10 of that guy, you're like, hey, that guy's a star. He looks like somebody.
And he was a good, solid worker.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, you know, it was kind of like I don't know. I would much rather be in the ring with Paul Roma than who?
I think I have an idea who you might be referring to. And well, actually, that person is the next subject that we're about to move on to, if you can believe it. So at the Royal Rumble, we've got a couple of other guys with great physiques who are about to go at it. The Ultimate Warrior, who I assume is who you were talking about, and Rick Rude are squaring off at this event, but it's not in a match. Instead, Ted, they're going to have a pose down here to determine the better physique. Ted, I asked Jim and Jake this question, so now I'll ask you. You came from the territories, blood and guts stuff in Mid-South, and the loaded glove, and, you know, a second generation star, all this background that you have, and now here you are. It's a pay-per-view. It's a pretty big money slot if you boil it down to dollars and cents, the amount of TV time they're using up, and it's a pose down with a couple oiled up guys flexing at each other. Ted, what did you think about this?
I was like, you know, I mean, it was kind of like, really. I mean, this is what we're going to do here. We're not going to have a match. We're going to have a pose down. Oh man, it was like. But again, you know, of course, that was the old school me speaking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of like, even now as I got older, it took me a long time as I got older and matured and looked back and at some of these things, you know, it was kind of like this is the way I was taught. This is this is the way wrestling should be, and but Vince McMahon had a different vision, and to his credit, it worked. It's kind of like everything changes, over time. It's just, it's kind of like, because of my mentality and how I've been raised in the business and everything. And, it's kind of like we used to do the kayfabe thing. Kayfabe that meant, keep your mouth shut. If you're in a program with a guy, don't ever let anybody see you guys like riding in the same car and all that stuff. You know that it's a show, but you treat it like it's real as far as the public is concerned. And that's how, that was my mindset. Now, Vince is coming along and basically said, look, yeah, we're sports entertainment. So what? We're good.
Mm-hmm.
Let me show you how good. And so he took wrestling to a place that, I never envisioned. And to his credit, I mean, we wouldn't be doing this podcast if it hadn't been for Vince McMahon and what he did for my career. I mean, and for wrestling 93,000 people at the Pontiac Silverdome.
Oh, insane.
WrestleMania 3. I mean, wrestling draws the largest indoor crowd ever for anything. That's pretty impressive.
It shows you that there's demand for it. And to your point, criticize this pose down as much as you want. And certainly I do. I view it as a fan, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like if I was watching this on pay-per-view and I paid money for this, I'd be like, come on, can we just have some wrestling or something? That being said, after this is Warrior's on the biggest run of his career following this. He's selling all kinds of merch, and fans are coming out to see him. He's going to be world champion here in a year. So it's like Vince is doing something correct with the way that he's marketing this guy. Also, I have to imagine that having Warrior out there posing is better than having him in a match, right?
Yes. He's a much better poser than he was a wrestler.
So we'll give him that.
Yeah.
Ted, let's get to our first clip this week. You pull a random number and maybe aren't quite so happy with the results. We're going to share the link to this clip in the description so everybody can watch it.
Well, the time has finally arrived for the $1 million hand to pick the $1 million number. And the winning number is... wait a minute. Slick.
Hey, what's up, man? What's up,
Slickster,
brother?
Listen, I got a question for you. When you picked your numbers for your voice today, were you happy with it?
Brother, unbelievable.
That happy, huh?
Hey, man, exactly.
Well, let's go talk this over. I got something to talk to you about. That's real important.
What's up, man?
Gentlemen, excuse me, gentlemen.
Oh boy, you're up to something there. Man, such a character. And I mean, it's such great character stuff for you here, isn't it?
Yeah. It was good. Yeah. And was that a gold suit I was wearing?
No, that was sparkly green.
Sparkly green. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Sparkly green.
Hell of a suit and hell of a very distinct, identifiable look that you've got there. I mean, when it comes to something like this, Ted, we always hear that guys like Jim Duggan and Arn Anderson, they would get given creative and they're just like, yep, no problem. Like, yeah, whatever you say, I don't care. And, not really guys that make suggestions. They're just like, okay, this is what you want. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
Were you like that? Or were you every once in a while saying like, hey, can I throw my 2 cents in on this? Or, hey, what if we change this to this?
Well, by and large, most of the time I was like the rest of the guys, because I mean, again, at the end of the day, it's kind of like there's no bargaining power. I mean, regional wrestling died. If you left the WWF, where are you going to go? You didn't have any place else to go as a wrestler. So if you want to keep your job, then you do what you're told. And that's basically, that's where Vince had everybody. Back in the regional days, back when you could, like if you were working, like for Georgia Championship Wrestling and they asked you to do something that you didn't want to do, or you felt like you were being mistreated, you could just give your notice and go to another territory. Well, now there was nowhere else to go. Now, for me, I did have one place I could go, and I could have gone back to Japan, but I mean, I got treated really well. I mean, my gosh, they ran with my character. I mean, for a long time. I mean, as a top heel, I was probably one of the top heels for the longest run of anybody.
Yep. Probably the most identifiable mainstream heel that's ever been established. It's you. And by the way, I want our listeners to kind of hear that. Like, you were much like Jim and Arn saying, yep, yeah, whatever you want. Yeah, let's just do it. And I'll do it to the best of my ability. And all three of these guys have had very, very long careers. So there's something to be said for just like, okay, that's what you want to do. Maybe I don't agree with it, but I'm just going to do it as well as I can, and let's see how it goes. So it's, I know a lot of fans are like, oh, well, he should have said no to that gimmick, or like, I think I can do better. No, not necessarily. Sometimes you just got to do what you're told.
Well, well, again, and as I just explained to everybody, okay, you don't like it. Well, quit. Where are you going to go?
Man, there were still a couple territories, but they were, and Turner's getting ready to buy, or maybe they have bought. I think they have. The WCW is an option at this time, but the other options are like Jerry Jarrett's promotion, WCCW, and it's like not a ton of money going around down there.
Yeah. You weren't going to make any money there.
Right. Yeah. So you better just run the play.
Yeah.
All right, so we're not wasting any time before we get to our final clip this week. You would successfully purchase the number 30 spot in the Rumble, and when it comes down to the end, it's just yourself, Akeem, and Big John Studd in there. Let's have a look.
Say it one more time. Oh, look at that! Whoa! Big John pulled the $1 million man right in front of him. Big John Studd. Oh, look at that! Akeem is gone. It's Big John Studd, the $1 million man. If I was the $1 million man, I'd try to buy off Studd right now. I don't like DiBiase's chances right now. He's saying, wait a minute. Look at, he's showing him the money. Oh, and Studd's not going for it. DiBiase looking for some money, perhaps to bribe this. You're not going to bribe Big John Studd. Hey, everybody's got their price, Gorilla. He could throw you a fib and get you to go for anything. This is what it's all about. He suckered him in close enough to get an eye rake, but oh, look at that. Right by the throat. Oh. Big John Studd extremely confident right now. I don't think DiBiase can hurt this guy. He did well when Akeem was in there with him, but look out now. Whoa. Big John Studd just measuring the $1 million man. Scoops him up. Big body slam. John's having a good time, Jess. Yeah, John better not get too confident. Double arm suplex. Look at this. Hooked up double underneath. I've never seen Big John Studd do that before. Neither have I. Big smile on his face. Extremely confident. Suplex. Gut-wrench suplex. Threw him away like a piece of garbage. Big John Studd takes him in for the ride. Hey, whoa. I'll tell you something, though, Gorilla. As bad as it looks for the $1 million man right now, don't count him out yet. Why? Because Virgil's still out there? No, because he's a darn good wrestler. Oh, no!
So just as Jesse is saying, like, hey, don't count him out. Oh, never mind, he's gone. But man, I don't think you got any offense on Big John Stud there at the end. He just kind of dog whipped you and threw you out the ring.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, I was, of course, the people loved it. That was the whole deal.
That's it. You got to send folks home happy. And, it's look, you may not necessarily agree that this guy's going to be a future superstar, but you're given a job to do. You got to shine this baby face, and you did it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. I mean, based on his look and his character, could you see him going on to have success, or did you know, like, this guy just doesn't have enough under the hood?
Well, I mean, he would have some success, but I mean, it wouldn't be long. I wouldn't say he would have a long run.
Well, you're right. He went 6 months. He was gone here in June 1989.
Yeah, and that's because his capabilities. There's only so much you can do with him.
That's it. So Ted, before we wrap this one up, I also did want to mention that the plans are beginning to form here for Mania 5 in many respects. Namely, the Mega Powers will have an issue here that will start their breakup and lead them down the road to the main event too, where Savage will accuse Hogan of having lust in his eyes for Liz, which is a hilarious line. Ted, this is a year-long storyline with these two. It's finally starting to come to a head. What's your take on super long storylines like this? Good stuff, or should angles be reduced to something like 6 months at a maximum?
Well, it just depends on who it is, and I would say it depends on the talent and are they capable of keeping it going. And if they're capable of keeping it going and keeping the interest of the people, will go. It was, like one of the things I was, that started happening that I didn't like was there was like some of the storylines were just too short. It's kind of like, I don't know. You could, back in the territorial days, man, you get a heel that could come in, and he would rule the roost for a long time. I mean, it was, it would take a long time to get to that place where you have the big blow off, if you know what I mean.
And to your point, it's you had been paired here with Hercules, and now like that's essentially over after this. Hercules is moving on to I don't know what, and I think you're going to be moving on to Brutus the Barber Beefcake for Mania. So it's like, you've got a really short storyline where Hogan and Savage have been building this thing for a year, and a lot of fans, Ted, consider this Mega Power storyline the greatest storyline in the history of wrestling. We've talked about a lot of your stuff over the years and over the course of the podcast, and some of your great storylines. Objectively, do you feel that the Mega Power storyline is the greatest storyline ever told in wrestling?
Well, gosh, I don't know. I mean, it was good. Obviously, it was good, and it was financially good because it worked. But yeah, I mean, the greatest angle of all time. How do you do that? I don't even know what that would be. So
it's a tough question to think about the greatest storyline of all time. When I asked Jake that question, he was like, "Oh, I don't know what there's so many. It's hard to even kind of consider it.
So many different things we did."
Right. So and I don't know. I'm gonna give it.
It's kind of like, let's go back to Mid-South and who's that in the gorilla suit?
See, now that's good stuff. That's an underrated storyline. I can't wait for us to talk about that. We will, folks, coming up sometime.
All right.
Okay, guys, that's going to do it. That'll wrap us up for this week. We're turning our attention back to Georgia next week, but now it's going to be January 1984, and your rivalry with Tommy Rich is going to get kicked up another notch with the introduction of the mysterious Mr. R character. So, Ted, I can't wait to go and have a look at that before we go.
And I had so much fun doing that. Oh, yeah. And we, I did a similar thing with JYD.
Stagger Lee, right?
Stagger Lee. Yeah, same thing.
Man.
Same gimmick, same angle.
It's tried and true in wrestling. You've got Stagger Lee and the Midnight Rider and Mr. R, and this is it's good stuff. And I cannot wait to watch back some of this footage. and go over that next week. Before we go, I have to do my usual reminder that if you'd like to get this podcast with no commercials and get access to a ton of sports and entertainment and wrestling content, get over to premierstreamingnetwork.com and sign up for Premier Plus. We're over there. RVD's over there. You've got Sabu over there. You've got so many great wrestling podcasts, hours and hours and hours of content. All you got to do is subscribe right now. premierstreamingnetwork.com, Premier Plus. Also, we don't want you guys to forget that we have been nominated for the Best Wrestling Podcast of 2024 through the Sports Podcast Awards. If you're listening to this and you've enjoyed our show, do us a big favor. Go to my social media or Ted's social media and click the link to cast your vote for us. Or you can visit sportspodcastgroup.com and cast your vote that way. It only takes a couple minutes, and it would be a huge honor to win the whole thing in less than a year into the run of our show. So, again, you can find the link on my X account at Marcus P. D'Angelo or on Ted's social media at MDM Ted DiBiase. Or if it's easier, just head to sportspodcastgroup.com and cast your vote right there. All right, that is going to do it for this week, Ted. As always, it's such a blast to look back at this era of pro wrestling with you. Well,
I appreciate it. And Marcus, you do you do a remarkable job of doing your homework to delve back in. I mean, you're bringing up a lot of stuff that, I go, gosh, I forgot that. I forgot that. I had forgotten that, because, and again, I mean, when you wrestled for almost 20 years and almost every night. Yeah. It's kind of hard to remember them all.
And it's funny because I'll be like, so Ted, it was October 26th, 1984. Let's talk about what you're doing. And you're like, okay. Like, I don't remember what I did 2 days ago. And I'm asking you about
that's why I go, Marcus, what did I do?
Well, look, the big highlight is that I got to let you know that Harley Race pulled a gun on Hulk Hogan during this episode.
Oh, yeah.
So, glad we got to cover that.
And I could, I mean, Harley was I could see Harley doing that. Yeah. I can also see him doing it as a rib. Yeah.
I mean, if he was looking for a job, that is one way to get the guy's attention.
Yeah, really.
Well, guys, we'll look forward to bringing you more stories next week, right, Ted?
That's right. And remember, everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
See you guys next time right here on Everybody's Got a Pod.